Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Please answer, I do.
I do.
Okay, before we start the meeting tonight, we had a reorganization meeting prior to this, and I'll remain as chair, Scott as vice chair, John as secretary. First appeal is 24-01, Beth Seifert for property located at 4420 West 28th Street, seeking a dimensional variance for a side yard setback to construct an addition in the R1 Single Family Residential District. If you'll please come up, and anyone who comes up, please state your name and address.
I'm Beth Seifert. I'm the owner of and resident of 4420 West 28th Street. As just stated, I'm here to ask for a dimensional variance for a side yard setback in order to construct an addition to replace an existing sun porch on the north side of my property. The existing sun porch is on the north side and measured 12 feet by 18 feet. The addition would be enlarged to measure 16 feet by 24 feet. The variance I'm asking for is a 4-foot variance, so I can increase the width of the addition from 12 feet to 16 feet. There are two reasons for this project. The first is that the concrete slab on which the sun porch was built has cracked and has sunk on the one end of the porch. It needs to be replaced. The second is, in looking at a replacement, I have to take into consideration the fact that I am taking care of my sister, who is diagnosed with Lewy body dementia, which is a form of dementia which ravages not only as Alzheimer's would, but also combines the problems of Parkinson's disease, the physical symptoms. It is a progressive disease. She's in need of 24/7 supervision and care. Her future will include permanent confinement to a wheelchair and then a hospital bed. In order to care for her at home, which is my plan, I need to make this area handicapped, namely wheelchair, especially accessible, plus provide the space for a bathroom, a laundry room, and a room for her future care. All of this requires a larger area than is occupied by the existing sun porch. I have consulted with physical and occupational therapists as a part of the planning for this project. The contractor for this project is Father and Son Remodeling. I have brought the plans for the addition with me, and our neighbor, Jason Henry, is here, who owns the property adjacent to the north side of our property at 2731 Patio Drive, and who is in favor of this project. I believe you have all the materials that were submitted with my application. Do you have any questions?
Is it 4 or 6 foot variance?
It's a 6-foot variance.
Well,
It says seeking a 6-foot variance.
Matt
4
can
foot.
explain that.
Yes, so the existing structure is non-conforming. It extends 4 feet into the existing setback,
No, 2 feet.
or 2 feet, I'm sorry, 2 feet into the existing setback. So if she were to rebuild, you could rebuild at that line, but she wants to extend it, an additional 4 feet. So
You
the
could,
way I wrote it up was it's a 6-foot variance, but 4 from the existing structure.
Okay.
So according to this sketch, it's 12 foot from the edge of this proposed to the line, to the plot line.
yes, 12 foot
Right.
from the addition,
Yeah,
as it would be to the property line.
Correct.
And based upon the use, does this require a special exception?
No, it's not for an in-law apartment. It's for just like sounds like
It's an addition to our house.
But it's not a separate living quarters?
No.
Okay.
No. No, we just need to be able to move her up into the main living area. It's a ranch. And the bathroom and the bedrooms are way down at the other end.
Okay.
And to take care of her properly, it would be good to have her up in the kitchen living area during the day.
Sure.
And that's what we're trying to provide here.
Okay.
Everyone done, Joe?
I really don't have anything else for you right now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Is there Would you mind coming up and just stating that, your position? Thank you. State your name and address and just, say what you think about it.
Yeah, my name is Jason Henry. I live at 2731 Patio Drive. As she stated, this dwelling will be 4 feet closer to my, the property line. And on that side of my house is just the garage, so I have no problem with this variance being approved. And I think it'll only increase the value of the neighborhood in general.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else? Township have anything? No? Okay. Moving on, appeal number 24-2, Mill Creek Township School District for property located at 3580 West 38th Street, seeking a variance from sign regulations to install a wall sign in the R1 Single Family Residential District.
And before you start, my law firm serves as solicitor for the Mill Creek Township School District. So in terms of my involvement at the back, I won't, be involved in any of the discussion or any of the legal analysis in connection with this variance request.
Jennifer Miazga, 347 Ben Avon, Meadville, Pennsylvania, 16335. MIAZGA. Howard Industries, representing Mill Creek, we will be doing the manufacturing of the sign. As stated, they're only allowed 24 square feet, and our entire sign is 160, so we're asking for 136 additional. The sign is non-illuminated, it's facing Kahi, and it's, representative of McDowell and their manufacturing abilities. It was a donor recognition sign that's pretty much going up.
So there's, it's non-illuminated, there's not going to be illumination pointing on it or anything?
That is correct, nothing.
Okay.
How is the general component of the sign, the size, the look and everything? Why was it determined to be so big and so large and outside the variance?
Just to get the letters at a visible reading size from Kahi and a little bit on the 38th Street side, that was the size that was kind of identified. We had to meet brand standards through the Gene Haas branding standards for the donation for McDowell. So we're kind of limited in like the font to create anything that would be significantly smaller by any means. And also manufacturing a certain size letter just to try to get your walled gun inside there and perform efficiently and be manufactured properly.
So this is contingent upon the receiving the grant, is the sign?
That is correct. Yep.
Have you considered other type of signage in there? I assume this is going right on the wall?
Yes.
Right, that west wall
Yes.
coming up there. Have you considered any other type other than putting it right on the masonry?
They did ground mount sign, but just because of the the significance of the grant, they wanted to show other examples throughout the state of Pennsylvania do have wall mounted letters. Actually, they have illuminated wall mounted letters, and we kind of just downsized and said like you're probably not going to get illumination passed. Would this be an alternative option? And still make it significant because it is a significant achievement for them.
And just to be clear, it would be the east wall.
North, yes,
Actually, it's not. Yeah, okay. I want to make sure I'm looking at the right spot.
it's like northeast.
And this is run by the school district, right?
That is correct.
So
Within
this
the garage
sign
doors.
represents,
It's like a grant they proposed, and they were
grant?
able to get, yes. Gene Haas, yes, yeah.
a future grant.
No, they actually have the signage on the outside of the building. It, the manufacturing, the machinery inside there, the materials and stuff like that, that they're able to perform.
I'll ask again, is there another type of sign other than something permanent that would be acceptable?
Unfortunately, not at this point.
I see on the other side of the school, there's some awnings for people that have lettering on them. They're not attached.
Right, like I said before, the Gene Haas kind of has their own kind of brand standards for this grant that they have, and they were kind of limited on options on what they would kind of accept,
Yeah.
per se. And this was the one thing that, McDowell wanted to show in this little area, just above a garage door, not illuminated, not unobtrusive, per se, to represent, an achievement that they kind of acquired.
It looks like commercial. Type sign.
Okay.
And it can't be made smaller? Or could it? You said it has certain parameters?
Yes, that is correct, for our manufacturing to achieve what they're asking for.
Okay.
May I interject? This is more for a point of clarification. This is not a variance for the size of the sign. The sign, wall signs are not actually permitted in the R1 district on conforming non-residential buildings. So just to let you know that it's not a variance request for the 24 square feet to exceed that.
Right, so reasonably, all the signs on McDowell are non-conforming.
Correct at this point, but this would be a new one, so it would,
Right.
yeah.
But I don't think
Just-
there aren't any signs directly on the building that I saw, other than door numbering, things like that.
Yeah, I cannot confirm or deny that,
Yeah. Well,
unfortunately.
Driving across.
Okay. Scott, do you have anything else?
Who's basically initiating the sign and the look, and is it McDowell or Gene Haas?
Gene Haas has a standard size and logo that we have to try to achieve on this. We came up with several variations. I mean, the sign actually was bigger at one point, and we shrunk it down to this size to still achieve what Gene Haas has submitted as their brand standards, and also still something that, is significant and not small and significant for people to see as they're driving by, because it is acknowledged throughout the state.
Was the sign contingent on the grant, or the grant contingent on the sign, or?
No, this is just.
So this is Mill Creek saying, we want to thank him and we want to acknowledge him. He says, well, that's great. However, it's got to have at least a minimum standard
Yes,
of
that is
what
correct.
you explained. Okay. I think I understand.
So there's no other way for signage to work other than being screwed to the wall for this grant? Or for-
Well, the grants already accept the risk acknowledging
Yeah,
it.
for why you're here, I guess.
Yes, that is
That's
correct.
the only way it'll work.
Yes, from,
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone in the audience like to speak on this?
Aaron O'Toole, I'm the CFO for the district. Just to shed a little bit more light onto the sign and the variance being requested it is part of an overarching agreement that we are working with Haas that establishes $25,000 annually in scholarships to our students. And then again, it's $350,000. We did agree upon some schematics that relate to the sign that is going to be used to invest in the renovations of the building. We are really looking at signage and naming rights as a big revenue source for the district, as we rely heavily on our local resources, primarily property taxes. And given the inflationary environment that we're coming out of and still exists, we're trying to find ways to ease the burden on the taxpayers themselves. So this is part of that endeavor as we're trying to push forward with naming rights, and Haas being a big partner in that as we buy equipment from them. Again, that kind of gives us a little light of why we're going with it. The size of the sign, they do have some very specific dimensions they would prefer to see. And then in regards to hanging it on the brick specifically, we are working towards a larger fundraising endeavor to redo the walkway. So we didn't really want to do any signage that is going to really prohibit us from any other projects that we might have to take down, and we thought it was best to be having it on the brick as compared to an awning or some other examples. So they had some specific requirements that Haas wanted in order to receive the funds that we were attempting to meet. And then we also had some future projects that we didn't want it to interfere with either.
Okay, I mean, one comment when you talk about naming rights, and, you know, I understand this, and this is that manufacturing center. I mean, we certainly, as a whole, it's, one sign is one thing. I wouldn't want to see it go down any sort of avenue like that, and maybe even put a stipulation on that, that we don't want to just be a billboard to get in more. And I appreciate revenue as a taxpayer, you know what I mean? Anything less is great, but it's a slippery slope if we're talking naming rights on every building and every surface.
And that's fair. We work with the township for future naming rights to ensure that we're not pursuing down a slippery slope.
Yeah, right.
Moving forward.
Okay.
We do typically have to go through some parameters as far as hardships and whatnot. What happens is there a hardship in this scenario?
Yeah, I mean, there is a possibility of us losing $350,000 that we were hoping to work with our McDowell High School renovation overall. What does that mean in terms of the district? It's either raising taxes to our local residents or coming out of fund balance.
Okay.
Matt?
The township does not have any.
Oh, I thought you raised your hand.
Oh, no, sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else? Okay. Last appeal is number 24-3, Child Development Centers for property located at 3814 Asbury Road, seeking approval for special exception for a daycare facility for adaptive reuse of non-residential structure, a variance to open the use to the public prior to 8 a.m., and a parking variance.
Good evening, members of the panel. You all know who I am, but for the record's purposes, Michael Agresti, 300 State Street, Suite 300. I'm here today on behalf of the Children Development Centers, Inc., CDC as it's also known. I just want to frame the issues, and then I'm going to have the director, CEO, Rena Irwin, speak, and we also have some others who will speak in favor of this. You all know this property. It's the old Asbury School in the corner of 38th and Asbury. It was purchased, I believe, back in 2020, 21. It was started to be used as a lease in 2019 by CDC, and it's been used since that time as an early education center. So essentially pre-K and K, supporting, frankly, the school district's efforts, and now supplementing and filling in a gap, actually, in what the school district can offer. But there's a number of empty rooms, and CDC has found that, like every community, there is a very significant need for daycare. It's particularly bad in Mill Creek. There's a shortage. There's wait lists at most daycare centers. And so they have these rooms, and they have the capacity to handle daycare operations. Many of their other centers have both daycare and early education. And that's what they seek to do in this location. So we're seeking to use the adaptive reuse section of the new ordinance. And the testimony of Ms. Irwin will show that all of the factors are met with one exception, and that's the hours. And what I would preface this today, and I've got some legal items to give to your solicitor to aid in the legal analysis, but the hour of 8 a.m. that's set forth in the adaptive reuse, it had to have been an oversight. It just, because you have daycare centers as one of the 5 very narrow uses. And with all due respect to the drafters who had a monumental task in drafting that new ordinance, I just don't think they understood that a daycare center cannot open at 8. It just can't function. And Ms. Irwin will speak to that, and as well as others. The children have to be dropped off earlier so that the parents can get to work. It's as simple as that. So that is the one of the 12 checklist items in that adaptive reuse that we'll spend a little bit of time talking about, because the rest are just check off the list. And then we'll speak just briefly about the parking dimensional variance that we're seeking. So with that, I'll turn it over to Rena, and I only have one copy, but the annual report of the CDC I'm going to submit as part of the record. Just to the extent you don't know about the good works that this entity does, it's all right in there. So Rena, your turn up here. Just if you'd give your business address, name to the court reporter.
Child Development Center's administrative office is at 213 East 41st Street in Erie, 16504.
Rena, if you could tell the members of the panel how large the facility is, the square footage?
Our Asbury Center is 34,000 square feet.
And when you first started, did you have to obtain occupancy permit, if you will, as to the number of children that you could have at the facility?
Yes, we were before this board in, I believe, 2020, regarding the number of parking places that the center had. We had installed a playground and had taken a few of the parking places. So we were giving a maximum number of children for the school of 304 children.
And how many kids are currently at the school before this adaptive reuse would be put into effect?
177.
And how are those kids brought to your school?
Either parents bring their children to school and pick them up every day, or the Child Development Center's school buses pick up children and bring them to the school and take them home.
Now, as part of the work that we've done for today, did you try to come up with a number of trips that would come in and out of the school property on a daily basis currently? What the maximum number of trips would be?
At 177 children, if each parent brought one child, there would at least be 177 drop-offs in the morning and 177 pickups in the afternoon.
As a practical matter, is that how it happens? You mentioned buses, and there are also probably families with more than one kid. Is that
True.
correct?
Yes, we could have sets of twins. We could have a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old, which are doubled up. With the bus routes, the buses could have anywhere between 10 and 30 children on them, depending on the route that we're picking up, that bring the children to school.
And how many, if this adaptive reuse is allowed to go forward, what is the maximum number of additional children that you'd have on location?
By turning the empty classrooms into infant toddler rooms, we would have approximately another 76 children that would attend the center.
Okay, so you're still well below your 304 that you're permitted?
Yes.
We did a trip generation report that I'll introduce as an exhibit and for benefit of the engineer, to the extent the engineer needs to look at it. Is this the document that we prepared together for?
Yes.
Our conclusion from that trip generation report was that the trips generated would not increase by greater than 5%, which is one of the factors in the adaptive reuse ordinance. It's still below the maximum that this facility could handle, which is 304. So we're still well within that existing use trip generation maximum, which is a phrase I've never said before. I think it's accurate. So that's one of the factors that's in the statute, or in the ordinance. Continuing on, the prior use of this building, for record purposes, everybody in the room knows, it was a public school, is that right?
Yes,
And to your knowledge, Rena, did that public school use exist for a period of more than 5 years?
yes, I believe it did.
Okay. And the use that you seek, for record purposes, it is a daycare facility as that term is defined in the ordinance?
Yes, daycare center in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania licensing.
How many daycare centers does CDC operate presently?
We operate 15 early childhood centers combined with Erie, Crawford, and Venango County.
And of those early education centers, how many also have toddlers and infants in them?
In Erie, 3 of them, 10th and Payne, downtown on 10th and French, and 23rd and Cranberry at our Roosevelt Center.
Have you found that having both the daycare and the early education in the same building is helpful to families with several small children?
Absolutely. Parents could have an infant and a preschooler, a toddler and a preschooler. So having all 3 age groups is really helpful, especially to working parents that can drop off at one location.
The plans that you have for this daycare, will they involve any changes to the footprint of the building that currently sits there?
No, the footprint will not change.
The structure's exterior, the building's exterior, will it be preserved and maintained, or will it be changed in any material way?
So according to the zoning rules, we must have an egress to the outside for any child under 2.5 years old. So we would have to install doors on those classrooms, which we have preliminary architectural plans to make happen, because the children can't go to a hallway as an emergency exit. As an infant, we must be able to go directly to the outside.
Does the addition of these doors change the overall look or appearance of the building?
No, we would be changing a window into a door.
Are you planning on any drive-through facilities at the property?
No.
And would traffic continue to exit, the new traffic that might be created by the daycare kids, would it continue to be directed onto Asbury Road?
Yes, parents would pull in on 38th Street, go in front of the building, and then exit onto Asbury Road as the parking lot's laid out now.
To your knowledge, would there be any stormwater management implications from the current plan without adding any additional parking?
No.
So that leaves us with the one factor that I haven't mentioned, which is the hours through your testimony. Could CDC function a daycare starting at 8 a.m.?
It would be very difficult. I've been at CDC for 26 years. Our centers have been open from 6 in the morning until 6 at night. So are our Erie facilities. Based on the work schedules of parents opening at 8, the largest amount of drop-off happens between 6:30 and 8 o'clock. We could have as many as 45 children. I ran the numbers for our downtown center, and by 8 o'clock, we have 45 children already in the building by that time, because their parents have their different work shifts.
Are you aware of any successful daycare that opens at 8 a.m. or later?
No, I looked at other centers in Erie just to have a comparison. Most of them are opening up at 6:30. There are a couple at 7:30, but none at 8 o'clock or later.
And is this what I'm handing you now, is that a sampling of what you
Yes.
uncovered? And these are other daycares in Erie County?
Correct, actually within the city or Mill Creek.
Now, your request is to open at 6 a.m. Some of these other centers open at 6:30. Is 6 a.m. Necessary based on your experience with your other locations?
We do have parents that are at the door waiting for us to open because they have a certain drive to get to work. Their shift may start at 6:30. Would it be the end of the world if it didn't open until 6:30? No, but we would be turning away certain parents that would need us that early.
Now, with regard to the parking, how many parking spaces are you currently using with your staff? Your teachers, your administrator, staff, and any parents that might stop in and park rather than go through the drive lane to drop off?
The parking places on 38th Street, which is the new parking lot that we put in when we opened, we're using all of those spaces mostly for our employees. That's where they park. There are some employees that park at the back, but the majority of the spots at the front of the building are empty throughout the day, and then that's when parents will come. We could have services for the children. The IU would come and help children with special needs. Those parking places are being used, but all of the parking places are not being used from morning till night.
The submission that was made by CDC indicated that there were plus or minus 55 spaces currently. Based upon your long experience running these kinds of centers, is that sufficient for the additional 76 kids that would be added to the daycare?
Yes, and the reason for that is that the daycare/childcare children the majority of them will get dropped off from 6 in the morning till, we'll say, 8:30 in the morning. Head Start and pre-K counts in that facility do not start until 9:30. So our buses are showing up between 9 and 9:30, and those parents of the preschoolers are dropping off during that time. So there won't even be like congestion because the daycare parents it's not like school starts at 8 o'clock and the masses show up. Those parents are staggered in and out based on when their work schedule. So if I have to be to work at 8, I may drop off at 7:30. Michael has to be to work at 7, he drops off at 6:30. So it's a staggering of drop off and pickup for childcare families.
And just so it's clear, the daycare drop-offs won't overlap with the school drop-offs?
No. I mean, there could be a couple parents that don't drop off until 9:30, and maybe their shift is 9:30 to 6 at their employer, but the majority of them will be prior to that time.
If you had to add, the current zoning requires 113 spaces under the daycare facilities requirements, 300 square feet of one space per 300 feet, and that would lead to a calculation of 113 spaces. Would you have any use for those additional 58 spaces?
No, and parents don't stay. I mean, they have to get to work. They're not coming in the center and staying for an hour. Actually, the average is probably between 5 and 10 minutes. Parents come in, they walk their child to the classroom, they say hello to the teacher, have the child go in the room, and then they're off to work. So there would be no reason for people to stay.
Would you have to add, if you had to live within the 113 spaces, would it require you to double the size of your asphalt parking lot?
Yes.
To your knowledge, would that require you to do all kinds of stormwater management?
Stormwater would be the biggest one with engineers, and that would be a lot.
And would it take the place of grass?
Yes, at the front of the building.
Those are all the questions I have for you, Rena. If I left anything out, you can certainly speak to the board on those issues, and certainly they might have some questions for you.
Yeah.
How many spaces do you have in the front of the building along Asbury?
I don't know the specific number.
Because the concern is more with the pickup and drop off when I
Right.
drive past certain
And
facilities.
those parents are really not pulling into slots based on the way the parking lot goes. There is they drop off, like they pull up to the front sidewalk,
Okay,
and then they park, they stop, walk in, and then come back out. The parking spaces are aligned along Asbury Road, and there's about 4 of them facing south. But most parents pull in, stop in the, we'll say the driveway area, and then drop off and then leave.
Matt, does that, I mean, I was trying to think about it, I mean, I know drop off and my kids are a little older than that, so it's more drop off and get out of the car, right? Where people don't actually stop, but how does that work with the fire lane and getting through? If we're actually stopping and getting out?
That's a building code question. I cannot answer it without,
Okay,
accurately.
okay, I wasn't sure if you,
And there
Fill in
also is still a lane that traffic can go
an
through.
open lane around it, so a
Yes.
car can pull out and
Yes.
around, okay, I just,
Yeah,
Trying
it's
to keep
wide,
that
it's
basic
it's
things.
wide enough for at least 2 cars on that.
okay. And then, you know, the other thing I think that came up, because, I mean, we've discussed this a few times over the years with the variances, was peak times. I mean, we all talk about most of the days of the year, but the Halloween party when all the parents show up to watch the kids have a parade and things like that. Do things like that happen?
CDC, based on a national accreditations, is not really about parties. There are celebrations by classroom at the end of a curriculum study. So about every 5 or 6 weeks, the study could be about balls, buildings, trees, and that classroom finishes their specific study, and they'll invite the parents of that room to come in. There have been times at lunchtime where we might have pizza with dads, or donuts for moms, and those are part of our Head Start regulations to engage parents. But we don't typically have a building-wide party that would have hundreds of people coming. It's not our normal behavior.
Okay.
How many employees are at CDC?
475.
At the
At
Asbury?
Asbury, approximately 40.
40 currently? And then how many additional would there be?
7 times 2, another 15. Each classroom has 2, so with 7 rooms, there'd be 14 more full-time staff in classrooms.
So a total of 54?
Could be another float or something, but 2 staff in each classroom.
And
So
how many
7
parking
rooms.
spaces do you have?
55.
So, I mean, we're full with just employees, would be part of the concern. I mean, that there's, literally one other person shows up and they have nowhere to park. I mean, while I understand some regulations of the 113, we can have a conversation whether that's a lot or not. If we're at 54 and we have 55 spots,
I would just, it's a great point, but I think that the timing of some of those teachers that are coming in, Rhea can speak to this, and the time that they leave, the early education teachers doesn't overlap. There's, in terms of places for parents, if you could speak to that. When do the parents usually come to pick up the daycare kids?
Anywhere between 3 in the afternoon and 6 at night. Our opening staff would be gone by then. So shifts are 6 to 2:30, 6:30 to 3, up to 9:30 to 6.
but it would be fair to say that from what you said with the pre-K times and drop-off times, that between, say, 9:30 and 3:30, all employees or educators are there.
Right.
Together.
Unless they're not in for the day.
Yeah, but assuming everyone shows up to work.
Yes. By
With 54
staffing,
plus a
yes.
floater gets us right at the number of parking
Yes.
spaces. And you understand, what we're trying to avoid is a situation where people are parking along Asbury Road and 38th Street.
And a lot of that was because the buses didn't have any place to go, and the parking lots weren't made. So, we did the
Right.
side parking lot, and then Matt and, at that time, Annie helped us design the front parking lot so that we could maximize the number of spaces.
Right, and I think it's worked with 40 employees. Just
Mm-hmm.
my concern is, just with all the employees showing up who are scheduled to work that day, every parking space is filled. So one parent shows up to park, because, I mean, stopping and getting out, I get that, but it's not a defined parking space. That's a concern. I mean, is there some hybrid in here that, because, I mean, just on the surface, there's not a spot for a delivery person to deliver one item or one parent to stop in and pick up their kid anywhere. There's zero surplus, so I mean, is there any other thought other than we are where we are, or else 113?
I mean, the only other option would be not be permitted to open 7 rooms and help those infant toddler parents, that we open less rooms. That would be the only, and then that would be less staff.
Well, sure, I mean, want to work through a situation here, but just want to have a little open
Right.
dialogue about it that, I don't know the whole board's ideas, but I'm just doing the quick math on it, and essentially we have 0 parking spaces for anyone other than staff in the current setup.
And that includes the parking at the
The front.
the front. So, I mean, even going through there with a vehicle of some sort, let alone a school bus, would be tough during
Well-
the center of the day.
And school buses go to the back of the building. They come around to the back. There are 2 hallways at the end, and the buses will drop off back there.
Is there services for handicap parking along Asbury also?
Yes, the 4 spaces that are facing south are the handicap ones.
And you're not counting those?
We would be counting those.
There's how many handicap spaces?
Believe 1, but I don't
Okay.
have memorized. I know there's at least 1 when I go out there.
Okay. So, assuming, whatever we want to say, no staff is handicapped, say they're all not, there aren't even enough spots right now just for your staff to park, if we take out the handicap spot.
If we add 7 rooms?
Mhm.
Yeah, in theory, that's probably true, yes.
Beyond the 7 rooms, is there, are you 100% occupied, or is there more rooms available for future expansion?
There would still be a couple of empty rooms. The building has up to 20. Right now, we're using 10 for Head Start and pre-K counts.
Could you reduce the number of rooms that you open up?
Yeah,
It sounds like it's a 2-to-1 ratio, you said?
2 to 1.
For the day. is
For
that-
the daycare you're adding, as far as,
Employees?
maybe I said employees to child in the daycare.
There are 2 staff in every classroom,
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, 2 staff per classroom.
based on the number of children. So 8 babies, the ratio's 1 to 4, so that's 2 staff. And it goes a little higher as children get older.
Okay.
Obviously, the parking's a problematic issue for us. It's got to be problematic for you as well. What have you discussed? What options have you looked at going forward?
Yeah, I mean, is there any way, or have you looked at reconfiguring spaces? I know that you had worked with, it sounds like the township previously on parking. I mean, is there any way to reconfigure to use the existing, blacktop for additional spaces, or is that pretty much maxed out?
That would be Matt. I don't know those rules.
I mean, you'd have to have the minimum space. I do recall, and correct me if I'm wrong, that there was a variance granted for the size of the parking spaces. I think it's 9 by 18, which is now our current standard. But as far as designing the parking lot, I didn't do that.
Yeah.
It's,
The side
you'd have to-
parking
your
lot.
engineer would have to do that.
Right, that was a good memory. The side parking lot, there was a variance for the width, I believe. It's just so long ago now. We also have a center downtown, and you can imagine across from the Seawolf Stadium, the city parking issue. And there are 130 parents in that building, and I don't know if you have seen that building, but there's just those spaces at the front. And we've been down there now it was June of 2022, and we've never had an issue with parking. So I guess based on mathematically, yes, but in operation, we've not experienced that.
Yeah, I guess, like I said, going back to it, is that I understand costs and all of that. Legitimately, everyone shows up to work, take away the handicap spots, you don't have enough room for everyone to park. Even just employees,
Right.
right
Unless
off the
we,
bat. So I mean, that seems problematic unless you have a carpooling situation or a shuttling situation from an alternate parking lot or something. I do struggle with that. And right now, I mean, just to be clear, we're asking for a variance for the parking. So I'm trying to work to see if there's some hybrid. So what you're asking for is a yes or no right now. So I'm just trying to see if there's a middle ground.
I think that the number really gets to whether it triggers more stormwater management. So if you guys said, you know, we feel more comfortable with 7 more spots for the parents or 10 more spots, if it doesn't trigger additional stormwater, it's probably feasible. If it does trigger stormwater, it becomes an expense that would outweigh the benefit of having that additional room or two. So I think CDC is certainly willing to address your concern. We understand your
Okay.
concern. It's just, I don't know, and I don't think I don't expect anybody from the township to know off the top of their head what that additional square footage, based on the existing stormwater, what that number might be. But hopefully, 7 or 10 spaces could be added without doing all that stormwater management.
Are there any topographical challenges or anything with respect to the property that would prevent you from expanding?
you mean that for a parking lot?
Yeah.
No, there's plenty of grass. If you keep going south on the parking lot at the front, clear to the back driveway is all grass.
Right.
And it's level.
Right, it seems perfect for diagonal pulling spots. Matt Waldinger, would you be able to comment on that at all? Yes, please.
Come on up, Matt. Join the party.
Matt Waldinger, 3608 West 26th Street. I'm the Director of Planning and Development. Did you have a specific question, or?
They said if it would trigger stormwater, my understanding is 1 square foot would trigger stormwater.
Any new impervious area would require stormwater management. To what extent? I know that they have done previous additions, like we spoke about with the new parking lot on the west side of the building. You do get a certain amount of credit, I'm sorry, I should take that back. Not credit, but you do have, there is a certain amount of cumulative effect. So if you do a little bit and then later you do a little bit more, we add that up. That doesn't just go away if you do it in stages. So those calculations, I don't know off the top of my head where they're at as far as what they've added and then what anything new additional would require them to do, but some stormwater would have to be done.
Okay. I think that's all I have right now. Thank you, I appreciate it.
Any other questions for Ms. Irwin?
I think it sounds like there's some sort of sweet spot here with the number of classrooms that you want to do versus
Right.
allowable parking. I'm
I
not
mean-
sure we know what that number is or what that is. We're apparently on the extreme with what we're talking about here.
Right, and we would be willing to open less rooms to help as many parents as we would be permitted to as we sit now, and then obviously look at, to make it more, to look at the stormwater, but helping, the way that the wait lists are for families that need childcare and that they either can't go to work or their children are in unsafe facilities, we would be willing to take a smaller number of children just to help the families that need us. All of our other facilities have wait lists for infant toddler, and we don't have any other facilities in Mill Creek. The rest of our infant toddler facilities are in the city.
Okay. Scott. Do Do you own the property to the west?
To the west.
Like where there was an old basketball court and baseball fields?
No, the district,
That's still
we
district
separated
property?
that, and our property ends just on the other side of the back driveway.
Okay. I just know there's the other old basketball court there. I didn't know if there's any sort of, you know,
Yeah.
if you think about employee designated parking there with a walkway up so that they're providing some space, you know, there's different,
Is that basketball court on your property or the,
No.
it's on the,
it's on Mill Creek, so.
No.
Aaron, you want to lease it to us for $1? He's on the hot seat, guys, you can ask him.
Only if you put your name on it.
I'm not giving $350,000 for that right now.
So, yeah, I don't have any questions for you at this
Okay.
time. Thank you.
We do have, Aaron would also like to speak to.
Absolutely.
The need, go ahead.
Yeah, one question first. Has the township engineer, is this the first time that that trip report has been
Yes.
submitted, so that they haven't even had an opportunity to review that?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, and for clarification, he prepared the trip generation report?
We did.
Two of
Okay.
us. I actually called the engineer to find, I've never had to submit one, so I don't know if a lawyer and a client can generate one, or if we need to hire a traffic study person, but it seems so obvious to us because we're under the 304 that we shouldn't expend that kind of funds, but if you guys tell us we need to, we will.
Okay.
I just don't know.
Well, I will say I will forward it to the engineer tomorrow.
Thank you. Okay, good. Come on up, Aaron. You're just going to speak, right? Let me ask you questions.
So in terms of overall daycare, I think overall, and really looking at West Mill Creek and beyond, there's a lot of DHS requirements. And as a school district, we're going through this currently right now where those requirements are much more strict than K-12 education. So I think I just want to, understanding that parking may be very limited and that could be a prohibitive factor in talking about all this, I do think that having a company such as CDC or any company that does the daycare component is absolutely critical to Erie. Speaking as an individual that has kids that trying to find it, it's very difficult. These wait lists are very long. So I just wanted to express that this is a need in our area. There's not very many of these within West Mill Creek or even getting into further west. That need is there, as well as the companies that can do that with the DHS requirements that are required, which are very different compared to K-12 education even. It makes it very difficult for even a school district to provide these types of services. We've actually gotten out of that business altogether because of those requirements and how restrictive they are. So I do think that finding some middle ground in terms of trying to accommodate the overall community that would need to be addressed.
Aaron, before you step down, the school district employees themselves, do you have a sense of their need for daycare services?
You know, being very specific to how many I don't, but our demographics are becoming younger. I'm an example of kids that are looking for daycare. We just went through some preschool discussions ourselves in regards to the limitations and how our own staff need that service at a reasonably priced. So that need is growing within our area. Our demographics of the school district are becoming very much younger, and more children our enrollment's growing in Mill Creek, which is different than Erie County as a whole, given the fact that the enrollment is declining, as well as the population, so.
Thank you, Aaron. Any questions for Aaron?
I do not.
Pardon?
You have
I agree.
eliminated your daycare from Mill Creek Township School District, right?
Yeah, we're only offering preschool at this current moment in time. And we only offer 6 classrooms, too. Because of those requirements. I mean, a 1-to-4 ratio, as you're talking about, and then the other inspection rates are much different with DHS than they are with K-12 education.
So there's a need for the teachers for their specific need in daycare. The teachers, if I heard you right, your teachers need daycare, like yourself and the teachers.
I'm not speaking on behalf of these teachers, I want to make that very clear, but I do know that I'm a good example of needing this service that is not readily available. I am speaking on behalf of some teachers that I am friends with. Yes, this service is becoming, and just speaking on behalf of the demographics for which we are experiencing as a school district, our enrollment is growing, and understanding how limited the services are that have been expressed to us as at the district. It is a problem that we're going to need to try to solve overall.
Do you have space there for daycare?
We don't, given the fact that we have sold the building that is at discussion here today to CDC, as we have gotten away from this program altogether.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Then we just have one more, I think one more? Yeah, two more. All right, come on up.
Hello, my name is Pino Scavella, P-I-N-O, last name Scavella, S-C-A-V-E-L-L-A. I'm at 5510 Millfair, Fairview, PA, 16415. So speaking as a parent, I have 3 children, 9, 7, and 3. Childcare needs are hard to come by. We left Erie in 2018, went to Myrtle Beach, came back in 2021 with a 2-year-old. Trying to find childcare was extremely difficult. We're on a wait list at several facilities. I don't know if it's okay to mention them, but we had childcare before. Real Life, St. Paul's, and what's that other place? The Fitness U. So I was on a wait list for 4 different daycares. We needed childcare. My wife works. She starts at 6:30. I start at 9, and we really had no option. We're on a wait list at every single place. The only option was my parents, who lived in Harbor Creek. So I drove 25 minutes one way, 25 minutes to get to work. So 2 hours of my day was driving. The hardest part, childcare. Just you want to place your child in a position of trust. Several friends were like, yeah, we could watch your kid. Only my parents, or a place like CDC or St. Paul's, or a place good character. So we've been at CDC for the last year, and I have not been in a better daycare. Well, she's 3. Yeah, it's just the best experience I've ever had with a child care center. And the 7-year-old and the 9-year-old went to child care, and yeah, this is the best experience.
Okay,
I love it there.
thank you.
I'm in favor of child care.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Good evening. My name is Benjamin Dougherty, D-O-U-G-H-E-R-T-Y. I live at 4610 West 38th Street. I live about on the north side of West 38th Street. I'm about 1/10 of a mile east of CDC. I'm simply here to voice my support for the special exception request for CDC to convert into a daycare or childcare facility. Like Pino spoke, I have 4 children right now, 13, 12, 10, and 8, and I've been at my current residence for about 7 years. And when we moved in, my kids were a lot younger, and again, to Pino's point, the only place I could get into for daycare was St. Vincent's, which is about 15 minutes from my house. Sometimes it took about 25 minutes, depending on traffic in the morning. So as a member of the community, I think it is a great opportunity for working parents, mothers, to have another place like the CDC to be able to feel comfortable and confident when sending their children in while they're at work. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good evening. My name is Joe Lockbaum. I live at 4722 West 38th Street. My house or home is the one that's directly across the street from the school. I hear a lot of conversations about discussing the need for childcare, and I don't really think that's the issue right here. We realize that that is a need in Mill Creek, Erie. The issue is about the parking that's over there next door. There's not enough parking. At times, it does get congested right across the street from my home. Most of the time, though, me, my wife, we both work, so we're usually out of there before 8 o'clock or right around that time. However, I'm self-employed, so I get to go home or sleep in or do whatever, so I see the congestion. Now, the question there is now you're talking about opening that up at 6 o'clock in the morning, increasing it by 70 cars. That's, I just ask that, take consideration for the residents that live I'm right across the street. That's all.
Okay, thank you.
For the record, he wasn't one of my witnesses.
Do you have anyone else? Township?
Matt Waldinger. Thank you again for this opportunity. I think hopefully to kind of start off on a positive note, the township does not have any objection to issuing the special exception as long as they meet the criteria. I think as Attorney Toman pointed out, the trip generation report has not yet been seen by the township engineer, so I know that is one of the criteria. And also in regards to the variance request regarding time, their township does not have an issue with that being granted. I was here today to bring up a few questions that the board ended up eventually asking about the parking. Those are where the main concerns of the township lie, but I think you guys have done a pretty thorough job of asking those questions and have that to deliberate. So that's all I have.
Okay, thanks, Matt. Anyone else? Do you have anything else?
I just had some papers to, there's a letter of support from Boo Haggerty at the Hammett Foundation. He oversees their whole staff and just speaks to again, the need for this, which probably by now is abundantly clear, but we're going to submit that for the record and copies of that. And then I just did I think a fairly short legal memorandum that Jeremy can.
It'll be the first one ever.
Not by his standards.
Short memo, right?
Yeah. But we do thank you for your time, and we thank those who spoke both for and we appreciate your concerns. Thank you for your time.
I told him to get it.
back on the record.
Okay, let the record show that we're going to reopen the testimony portion based upon new information that came about.
Thank you for this opportunity, and I apologize for, I was using a number that was in the application of 55 plus or minus, and in fact, it's quite a few more. Joel Mars from Roth Mars is here. He's done a count. We've had others look at the map and do a similar count, and what we're coming up with is 71 spaces. Again, I did not prep Rena very well on that question. Frankly, I didn't know how many of the teachers would take up the 55, so
Okay.
I was not aware that it was that tight.
Okay.
But hopefully, with the knowledge that 71 spaces are present, that will alleviate, hopefully, your concerns. That's,
Is that 71 spaces including the handicap, or are we still not sure about the handicap?
it does include the
It
handicap.
does.
And Rena could offer additional testimony if you feel it's necessary as to the flexibility that that allows. That's a, I'll testify for if you allow me, that's a lot of extra spaces for parents. Parents do not stay long, and many of them don't park. They stop in that stop lane. And there is plenty of, as she testified, plenty of room for other trucks, fire trucks, God forbid, to get past. So,
Okay.
thank you very much for the opportunity to reopen, so we didn't have to revisit
Okay.
this at another time.
We'd also like to reopen on the Mill Creek Township School District sign. One additional question, if you could please come back up. We had notes, competing answers between you and Aaron, actually yourself and then Aaron. We said, is this signage contingent upon the grant? And once you said no, once you said yes. Aaron seemed to say yes. He kind of said yes, but
I think they have already received it, if I,
that's what it was said, is they already received the grant, so wanted to do this back. And so we didn't know if it's contingent upon having directional signage or signage with logo.
I don't know for a fact.
Okay.
No, I don't.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, let the record show we reconvened at 7:50. Appeal number 24-1, Beth Seifert, do we have a motion?
I have a motion, I'll make a motion to approve as stated.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Appeal number 24-2, Mill Creek Township School District, do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the lettering as shown, but not the logo.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Appeal number 24-3, Child Development Centers. I will make a couple motions here. Number one, regarding the special exception, I'll make a motion to approve, subject to the township engineering of the approval of the trip generation report. Do I have a second?
Second that.
Scott was a second?
Sure.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Regarding operating a daycare starting at 6 a.m., I'll make a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Third, regarding the parking variance. It says 51, based upon testimony, we're saying there are 71. I'll make a motion to approve the parking variance for 71 spots in lieu of the required 113. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll motion.
Second.
Aye. So moved.
Aye.